I'm very happy to see you back in the main debate room to now go to the next point on the agenda of today, which is the summary of the 3 discussion panels that we had just before the lunch break. Right after the summary of the discussion panels, we will have a short ceremony of handing the awards to the winners of our ED4BG Photo Competition. And after this short ceremony, I will invite once more, and for the last time, for the official part, the director of the agency, Mr. Fabrice Leggeri, to close the event, the official part of the event today. So now, if you allow me, I would like to invite the 3 moderators. One moderator, unfortunately, had to leave. Marta Pachocka had to leave earlier today. So on her behalf, will somebody else doing the summary. So allow me, please, inviting Sander, Dan, and Klaus Ressler, who will be replacing and substituting for Marta.
Okay, thank you very much. So I will take the role of moderator. Let me start with summarizing the debate that I was moderating, and then I'll give you the floor. So the debate I was moderating was on integrated border management, and it was called, or it was given the name, an European integrated border management strategy, a new concept, ? And I think the question mark was indeed the core of the debate that we had here on this stage. The new European Border and Coast Guard regulation foresees for the first time in a legally binding obligation to have integrated border management strategy on 3 levels. And we had representatives of all 3 levels here at the debate. So we had the European Commission, who is going to work on a political strategy. We had the agency. The agency has to work on an operational and technical strategy. We had a representative of the member states, who has to make a national strategy. And we had the academic world represented to comment from the perspective of the, let's say, well-informed outsider. So these 3 levels are, I think, the core of what's new in the integrated border management concept, as you can say, in the new regulation. So it's not so much the content what is new. The 11 elements that are now explicitly listed in the regulation, they were not listed explicitly before, but they were more or less incorporated in the former integrated border management concept, which was invented by the Finnish and put in council conclusions in 2006. But already before we learned, in 2002, it was in the Schengen Borders Code catalog. So the legal obligation on the different stakeholders to come up with a strategy, that's the new element. And why is that important? Well, it is exactly because the content is not so much new, but this legal obligation forces on different levels the let's say the responsible institutions of carrying out border management to think about this IBM strategy. It forces the political level to think about a political IBM strategy. What should it consist? How should it be a good base for the strategies that should be based on this political strategy, such as the technical and operational strategy? What should be in there? The agency needs to write the strategy, and they need to do it jointly with the member states and other relevant stakeholders like other agencies. And also member states, they need to think about their strategy. They already did that, but they need to think about how is this strategy entirely brought in line with the political strategy and the operational and technical strategy. And this is important, this legal obligation, because in the end, IBM is not so much about content, it's about talking to each other. That's what we learned in this debate. It's about linking each other, linking different agencies that have to cooperate with each other. It's about linking different policy areas that have to be developed jointly or in a jointly perspective. That's what matters in integrated border management. It's the integration part, which is not so easy, we learned in the debate, because, for example, member states have whole different challenges. We had a representative from the Belgian government. He has different challenges than member states located elsewhere in Europe, like in the south or in the east. So the strategy needs to have enough space for flexibility for the different member states to focus on the challenges that are specific and particular for that member state, while on the other end, the strategy needs to contribute to this common European integrated border management. And that's, I believe, where this new concept in the end is all about. It's about this shared responsibility between the agency and the member states, and making an effort that they jointly manage the external borders in the best possible way. So these are the conclusions that I drew from this debate that we had. So that means that the strategy, it's not entirely new, but still we need to do some work. We need to, the concept isn't new, but we need to work on strategies in order to improve this integration and cooperation between all the different stakeholders in the field of border management. So that's not exactly 15 minutes long, but I prefer to be concise. So, colleagues, can I give you the floor in order to elaborate on your debates?
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And on behalf of the absent moderator, Dr. Marta Pachocka, I will try to briefly summarize the debate: border security as a part of internal and external security. And I have to say that we were not that much talking about external security. We were more talking about being part of internal security at external EU borders or European borders. And this panel brought together different perspectives: the operational, the training perspective, digitalization of border control, and how to keep our border guards mentally healthy. And this was introduced and debated in view of the migration crisis of the recent years, and the fact that this crisis needs to be approached by different actors and different measures. And they require a response on EU level, as the external threats also become a threat for the whole EU. 4 experts were invited to this session. There was Egad Belijev, counselor in the field of illegal migration, frontiers and Schengen matters at the permanent representation of Estonia to the EU. Dr. Julie Norris, involved in the design and development of the Frontex sectoral qualifications framework and the European Joint Masters in Strategic Border Management. Pascal Robin-Wolf, that has just last week graduated in this Joint Masters Strategic Border Management course, and he is a member of the Dutch Royal Military Academy. And myself in my capacity as the Director of Frontex Operations Division. The moderator briefly introduced to the current security issues in the EU stressing that safety and security issues are gaining momentum in the EU in recent years, both internally and externally, due to the different development. And then the invited experts discussed the current state of play in the field of EU security, with a special focus on border security-related issues. We tried to identify main risks and threats to the internal security of the EU from an academic perspective, from the operational perspective of Frontex, as well as from the experience of member states and border guards. And for example, about digitalization, the field that Egert covered. He tried to familiarize us more with the ongoing processes and the ongoing IT tools for the processing of documents, like it is the legislative development of project like ETIAS, the European Travel Information and Authorization System, the entry-exit system, the automated border gates, and he emphasized the need of interoperability of the IT systems at the border in order to have the synergy and effectiveness improved. The second, the training perspective presented by Julie Norris, he emphasized that of course there is training is a matter is a tool to harmonize and to standardize and to enhance skills and to enhance professionalism in a harmonized way. But what was even more important for her is that through training, policy implementation, operational implementation comes down to the people, comes down to the border guard working in the field, and these border guards need individuality to be maintained and to be maintained on their specific skills and competences. And the European Joint Masters on Strategic Border Management is an example for this. And with Pascal Wolf, we had the graduate, the participant in this course, and he touched one important point, which is the mental health. Border guards that are working in new, more complex and more risky environments, border guards that are confronted with migrants dying at sea, with bodies to be recovered from the sea or at land borders, border guards that are confronted with an increased use of violence by the criminal networks. They are confronted with THP, with terrorism, with foreign fighters, and therefore with a risk also to be mentally negatively affected. And therefore mental health and how to maintain and how to introduce possibilities to support them during the deployment and after the deployment. This was subject of his research during the master's course, and he presented this as a useful complementary element to the whole debate. From the Frontex operational point of view, it was important to underline border control as a bundle of actions to safeguard internal mobility. Effectiveness at external borders safeguards internal freedom and mobility. And the Frontex provides a variety of support on border security at all types of borders to detect criminal activities, to support on identification and registration of massive migratory flows, to support on referral of persons in need for protection, and of course to do this with a specific focus and with a high volume of deployment at the hotspots, and to in this sense also to use border control as a filter for detection of crime and for starting investigations, and to transmit information with personal data, with other relevant content to the competent authorities. Then after these statements and some debate, there were some questions: how to improve effective border management, and in particular how to convince member states to focus on external border control instead of reintroducing internal checks, where to put the priority from the Frontex side and from the member states side, and what could be the solutions, what could be how to convince member states, and what could be solution. Again, the panelists underlined and emphasized once more what they had elaborated on during the debate with the digitalization, for example, how new IT systems and their use in interoperability can support national border control authorities and also Frontex. Secondly, how training of border guards is a bridging element and is an element of standardization and harmonization of skills and competences, and of course to keep the border guards healthy, so once again to focus on good performance of border guards and coast guards working in the field, working on the ground. And this means, in summary, to convince member states for focusing and contributing to external border control. This can be done by effective operational response, so try to effectively support from the European perspective Frontex, but also including other JHA agencies like Europol to be effective, including the respect of fundamental rights. And secondly, to use the vulnerability assessment, the combined assessment of external threats and internal capacity to cope with and to respond to the threats. Use this together with the member states in a cooperative and preventive way. These were, in summary, the second debate.
Okay. Dan Torell, Director International Affairs, Swedish Coast Guard. Oops. No. Sorry for that. I thought I turned it off totally. So that shouldn't happen. The panel role of the Frontex in the Coast Guard functions, and if you are strict reading only the regulation on Frontex, it says that border guard in Europe consists of the Frontex, the national border guards, and Coast Guard organizations in the extent that they are involved in border guard. But it's quite a wide area of subjects to discuss if you talk about Coast Guard functions, which we did during the debate. Every country has its own responsibility and solution when it comes to Coast Guard functions and coast guarding, and I try to keep them splitted because it's easy to fall in the trap to talk about Coast Guard when you actually mean Coast Guard functions. It could be named very differently in different countries, but normally it's a multi-purpose organization. Normally not a police force or a custom organization. totally but related to that type of responsibilities. If you look upon a Coast Guard officer in Sweden, for example, it's a Coast Guard officer with police authority, with Coast Guard authority, a customs authority or fishery inspector's authority. It's not a policeman, it's not a custom officer. That one solution, very often an independent organization dealing with Coast Guard functions. But it could also be an integrated solution. For example, a Coast Guard organization integrated into the border guard. Finland, Poland is two examples of that. Or within the Navy, France is another example on that. Or a third solution, a cooperating solution, examples on that in the Netherlands and Germany, for example. No special organization, but different types of mechanisms to find good solutions on cooperating in Coast Guard functions. And there are actually also countries in Europe that have no specific organization for coast guarding. Every and each authority carry out their own business according to Coast Guard functions. We talk about 11 Coast Guard functions in the preamble to the regulation, and those 11 functions actually comes from discussions in the European Coast Guard Function Forum. When we tried to establish a better cooperation between Coast Guard organizations or organizations carrying out Coast Guard functions, we tried to have a good name on that and came up with the European Coast Guard Functions Forum, and we also then established those 11 functions that could be read in the preamble to the regulations. In one of European Union projects, the Common Information Sharing Environment project, we have also identified more than 300 different authorities involved in Coast Guard functions in Europe. Most of them normally not in their daily work, but quite many in their daily work, so to say, with a common interest to work together. And not only with Frontex, EFCA and EMSA, it could be also Europol, European Defence Agency, OLAF, quite many different agencies within the European Union that Coast Guard organizations work together with. It was also concluded that the challenges in the Coast Guard's arena are always possible to handle if you can establish a good cooperation or coordination. The challenge for Frontex and EMSA and EFCA is to decide on the shape of the future cooperation from our perspective. And I would say coordination most important, not only to find ways to cooperate, also to coordinate this cooperation in a good way. Based on the new regulation establishing European Border and Coast Guard Agency, Frontex, the agency stands at the center of Europe's efforts to expand interagency cooperation and maritime domain on carrying out various Coast Guard functions. Frontex, as law enforcement agency, has been operative at maritime domain already since 2006, as we heard earlier, while implementing joint maritime operation targeting to address migratory challenges at that time in the North Atlantic Ocean and the Mediterranean Sea. Me personally, quite interesting what's going to happen in the future. Will it be developed also up in the northern parts of Europe, for example, the Baltic Sea and North Sea? That could be of interest for us up there. Joint maritime operations with multipurpose objectives have been used as a baseline to provide support to member states, while support was based upon the existing cooperation between the three agencies following a tripartite working arrangement, which is also completed by an increasing number of services level agreements signed between the agencies. The pilot project creation of the European Coast Guard function has been used by the agencies to explore interagency cooperation in real operational scenarios, and it was launched in January 2016. But I remember the European Coast Guard Function Forum in Helsinki when the Commission and the three agencies together introduced a non-paper in 2015, if I remember correctly. Already in 2015 we saw and heard from the Commission and the agencies of the coming work that we now see some of the results from, but it has been underlined in many times that this is only the beginning. During multipurpose operations, Frontex has made also considerable contributions to search and rescue operations, and each year, thanks to Frontex deployed seaborne and airborne assets, thousands of people are being rescued. Providing such assistance is also a part of Frontex new mandate linked with operational and technical support to search and rescue and part of European integrated border management. I think we all can agree that the facilitators that deal with smuggling of migrants in the Mediterranean uses the fact that we have an international regulation on search and rescue, and every seafarer is obliged to take part in such a operation if possible. Assistance to search and rescue is provided also beyond the operational areas of Frontex. For example, in the joint operation Triton, where many SAR events are happening close by the Libyan coast. In this regard, during the last year, Frontex deployed assets were involved directly in rescuing 90,000 people, more than 90,000 people in operations in Italy and in Greece. Impressive figures, I must say. In 2016, Frontex contributed to arrest approximately 1,000 suspected people, smugglers, and helped seize 96 tons of narcotics, as well as detection of other cross-border crimes. This is also a very good result and shows the importance of cooperation in this area. Together with the European Coast Guard Function Forum and the Portuguese chairmanship, Frontex also in May this year took part in organizing COSTEX 2017, a multifunction, multi-agency operation drilled with the objective to identify gaps and complementaries between European and national agencies in order to develop interoperability between these agencies in the frame of Coast Guard functions activities. European Coast Guard Function Forum is still very active within this area, and as far as we can see, who are members into that cooperation, this will be a very good and ongoing cooperation also with the activities in the three agencies. From France, we had a presentation on how they have established the Coast Guard functions, and one of the challenges that they presented is to build a network with maritime surveillance at the center of the network. You have to transfer many responsibilities, such as arrest of suspected criminals and so on, to member states. That's a member state's responsibility. France have, as I said, a military solution on their Coast Guard functions activities. Sweden have a non-military, but we are very similar in the way of how we work, except for the legislation, national legislation. I'll come back to that later. France supports the new dynamic, and we need to detect complex security threats. We also need to work together along with Frontex. It's a real challenge to work together, and we have to do more in the future. Our third speaker in the panel had a discussion on the new regulation. Coast Guard for Frontex is currently only the name, he argued, but the flesh is still lacking. Coast Guard functions are not defined in the regulation. These functions are more or less defined by European Coast Guard function fora, but they are mentioned in the preamble to the regulation. But it's not in the regulation as such. The three agencies signed the three-party working arrangement, and Article 53 for Frontex then is very vague and problematic, he argued, but nobody seems to know what it implies in practice. It covers Coast Guard holistically, but not only border management. I could agree on that, but at the same time, Coast Guard functions is very much relied upon national legislation or flag stat legislation, flag stat jurisdiction, coastal jurisdiction, port state jurisdiction, and of course also European legislation. And that has to be, he argued, looked into in more detail in the future to be sure of what is demanded actually for Frontex in the future. There are some rules that apply to only specific entities. So Frontex has its own rules. Italian military, different perspectives could be seen and needs to be dealt with in depth in the future. We're not sure, he argued, if we should have common rules for search and rescue, for example. You need to have rules or at least standard operational procedures that are common, but there are international legislation in place to handle this type of operations. Joint operations conducted by Frontex make teamwork differently than other actors. Very clear rules on the European level is needed. In conclusion, and my own thoughts is that national legislation is still of most important. It's still national responsibility, national solutions that have the main part of the assets available for this type of operations, even if capacity building within the three agencies can help in the future. Different Coast Guard organizations are built upon cooperation, especially within the national, in the frames of the national legislation, even if there are international cooperation in place. It's important to remember that the vessel is never a criminal. When we talk about different types of systems that map the situation at sea, you also need to have support by databases, the different information needed to select objects of interest, and even in the future. And how much can we get into a head of a Coast Guard officer? Where is the limit for the knowledge and the skills of a Coast Guard officer? And that ends my conclusions.
Yes, applause, please. I would like to sincerely thank Sander, Dan, Klaus, who replaced Marta, but also Roderick, who was our moderator in the morning. Thank you very much for accepting this extra role and also for giving this summary of the three discussion panels. I think once more the applause for the gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, and the next part is related to ED4BG Photo Competition. Just to let you know that despite announcing the photo competition pretty late this year, we still managed to have many very interesting entries, over 50 of them. Out of these, of course, a jury selected the winners. And we have also selected several photographs that we found very interesting, showing the different shades of border and coast guarding, if I can say so. And I hope you have had the chance to see the photographs next to the main debate room, the exhibition of those that we found also very interesting for you to show. what is the life of the Border and Coast Guard on duty, but also off duty. These were the two leading subjects. Now, for the ceremony of handing the awards to the winners, the third, second, and first place, I would like to invite the Deputy Executive Director, Bert Körner. So, ladies and gentlemen, I will start with the third place winner. Unfortunately, the winner couldn't attend this event, but on behalf of Dariusz Kaługa, who took the third place in the competition, this is not a secret and this is not Oscar's awards ceremony, so I'm not doing any suspense. This is the third place photograph. Dariusz Kaługa from Bieszczadzki Regional Unit of the Border Guards. Unfortunately, he couldn't participate, but on his behalf, the award will be taken by Grzegorz Niemiec, Colonel Grzegorz Niemiec, the Director of the International Affairs Department from the Polish Border Guard Headquarters. Can I please invite Grzegorz to the stage?
But on his behalf, I would like to thank you very much for this great prize.
Thank you very much for his contribution and congratulations to him.
Thank you very much.
Second place, we are lucky because the person who took the second place in the photo competition is here with us today in the room. Mr. Christoph Lies, can I please invite you to the stage?
I would like to thank you a lot, especially for this prize, and I'm happy to be with you today.
Thank you much.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, the winner of this year's ED4BG Photo Competition is a Swedish Coast Guard officer, Valdemar Lindenkrantz, who couldn't participate, but in a moment you will learn why. And of course, the winning photograph.
Hello everybody, my name is Valdemar Lindenkrantz and I work for the Swedish Coast Guard. I'm very honored, very proud and very happy to receive this first prize in this photo competition. I'm sorry I cannot be with you today, but I am preparing for a 2-week deployment in Joint Operation Triton on board our vessel KBV-002. In the photograph, you see a Swedish Coast Guard officer holding an infant while its mother is taken to safety. The photograph was taken on the island of Lesbos, Greece, in the port of Mytilene. Once again, I'm very sorry I cannot be with you today. I'm very happy and very proud to receive this award, and I hope you have a great ceremony. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you, Bernd. Thank you. And just to let you know, Valdemar is starting his deployment in Triton operation tomorrow. So due to the organizational issues, this is the reason actually why he couldn't join us today. Now, ladies and gentlemen, before we go to the very last point of the agenda, of the official part of today's, I will share again some administrative information or some kind of reminders, if you allow me, please. So right after the closing remarks, closing speech by the Executive Director, Mr. Fabrice Leggeri, we close the official part, but what is still happening outside? Well, first of all, the industry exhibition is still rolling, and this will close only at 6 p.m. The cinema is still open till 6:30. As I mentioned, in the morning and then just before lunch, starting from 4:30, you can also participate in indoor games and other sporting activities. This is, of course, for volunteers. Again, as a reminder, those who are not accommodated in Narvi Hotel, but are staying with us till the dinner. In the evening, if you need to refresh and have a moment of relaxation, the spa area is for your disposal. In the evening, for those who will have to travel back to Warsaw because they are accommodated there and they don't stay in Narwil Hotel, just as a reminder, starting from 9:30 onwards, every 30 minutes we'll have shuttle buses taking you to Warsaw. And now, I would like to invite the director, Fabrice Leggeri, once more for the official closing of the party.
Distinguished guests and participants who attended this 8th edition of European Day for Border Guards. We met today to discuss border management. We spoke about strategic issues as well as specific developments. We talked about border security as a crucial component of internal and external security. We discussed our agency's role in Coast Guard functions, and we talked about integrated border management. With the European Border and Coast Guard regulation and Frontex moving forward on implementation of its new task, we are working closer together to ensure proper border control and security of our external borders. Since the migration crisis of 2015, Frontex has not only expanded its operations, deployed many more border guards and equipment, but we have also strengthened our role as a security actor involved in fighting many types of cross-border crime and terrorism. In cooperation with the European Maritime Safety Agency and the European Fisheries Control Agency, we now run multi-purpose operations and pass personal data gathered in our operations to Europol. These are all important developments, but to advance even further, we need to develop more partnerships. For example, in our Coast Guard functions, we need to work closely together with all law enforcement organizations at sea, including customs. We need to work on interoperability in our operations, but we also need to continue our work on training European border guards and coast guards so they are well prepared to carry out their task at our external borders. Here, I would like to mention that just a couple of days ago, 23 members of the inaugural class of Frontex Joint Masters in Strategic Border Management received their diplomas. I would like to congratulate them. We all know we have great challenges ahead of us, but I'm confident we will meet them working together. Dear colleagues, the official part of our conference is drawing to an end, and it is my pleasure to express my gratitude to all those who made it a reality. Before concluding this event, I also would like to give some news from Teddy Wilkin. Maybe some of you know him. He's a former Frontex employee. He joined EASO some weeks ago. He had a car accident in Malta some weeks ago. He was seriously injured, but now the good news is that he's better, and now he's on the way back. So we would like to greet him and express best wishes to him. Well, an event like this, with this scale, requires involvement of all parts of the organizations, and I wanted to thank colleagues from all divisions: corporate governance, operation divisions, capacity building division. I would like to thank colleagues from all the units, from the press office, from the cabinet, from all the agency. They contributed to this event. And believe me, there were many who worked hard, many months, to put this conference together. under the overall supervision of the Deputy Executive Director, Bernd Körner. When it comes to the implementation of all IDs, let me thank in particular the team headed by Mariusz Okapiec, Corporate Services. I would like to congratulate Mariusz and his team on the organization of this very complex event. And of course, any conference is a success only if there are participants. On behalf of Frontex, I would like to express my sincere thanks to all of you who have joined us today. Thank you all. Do enjoy the rest of your stay, and I hope to see you all at the party tonight. I hope to see some of you participating in Frontex operations in the next weeks and months. And do remember, the agency is recruiting staff. So I hope to see some of you applying for a job in Frontex soon. Thank you very much.